we have heard 4 main questions that people had at the county's meeting on April 30th. And just to start us off, we thought we would call out what those questions are and respond to them. Number 1, what's the county's timeline and process, and who's going to select the developer for this property? Number 2, where is CLAM in all this, and what is CLAM's vision? Number 3, will CLAM do the whole thing on its own? And number 4, will this housing be available for people who live or work locally? Those are the big ticket items. We're going to walk through those and then open it up, starting with the county's timeline process and who selects the developer.
I'm Dennis Rodoni. I'm District 4 Supervisor. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I do want to just call out and congratulate CLAM and the Inverness Association, Inverness Foundation on that great news tonight. It's really wonderful to hear that another couple units are being put into CLAM's portfolio and more people are being served. I also want to thank you all for being engaged on the Coast Guard from the very beginning and being anxious about what's going to happen there. I totally understand that and get that. And I want to assure you, though, that Jared Huffman and my office are working closely together on this to make sure that we reach our end line, which is basically affordable housing on the Coast Guard property. And I don't think there's any question in our mind. It's just a matter of when. But when we talk about schedule, the one thing that really sticks out is that the legislation is due to expire December 2019. So at the end of the day, we need to have this deal done by then because we're not very optimistic about new legislation being passed at this point that would favor a particular county or a group benefiting from a Coast Guard property. So really that's the kind of end line for all of us to make sure that we have the property in the county's possession at that point. The good news is that Jared Huffman made sure that Marin County is going to end up with this property and that the community is going to end up with affordable housing. And that's the overriding principal goals here is that we want to have affordable housing units on the Coast Guard property. And that's really the overriding goals. And that's the principle that we all have in place at this point. So what's happening right now? Right now, the negotiations going on between County of Marin and the Coast Guard. The appraisals are being done, quite honestly, and that's what's going on right now. Once that is done, then the two sides need to negotiate a price. And so until we get to that point, though, and we actually have an agreement, there's probably not much you'll know or hear about the deal until the agreement is actually done, and then both parties agree that the information can be shared. So what's going on right now is, as you know, CDA housing people are working with a working group in the community whose primary mission is to give input related to community input, how to do that, and then also what the community vision might be. And then they're also making suggestions around, well, when we redevelop the buildings, and there's not a lot of redevelopment, but also what types of things do you want to achieve, like green buildings, sustainable buildings, and that sort of thing. So a lot of those discussions are taking place. And then, as I say, there'll be a follow-up community meeting mid-July for some more input. And then the consultant will work with the county in developing an RFP for the development. And once the county's done that draft, then the working group will be able to see it. And then the county will probably put it out for review and put it out into the public for doing an RFP and submitting it back to the county, and there'll be a timeline on that. Then once it comes back to the county, a committee of county departments, the Department of Public Works, the CAO's office, the CDA, Community Development Office, and a number, one or two, I don't know if they've decided yet, of the working group will review the documents, review the RFPs, and then probably come down with a list of preferred developers. And those will be weighted in a lot of different ways, and part of the RFP will develop that weighting too. And what I'm hoping happens in the RFP, that there's some weighting given for a community group to actually do some of these functions that are in the development RFP.
So the second one is, where is CLAM in all of this, and what's CLAM's vision? We have given this quite a lot of thought and a lot of hard work behind the scenes. And also, we've been listening to people over the past 2 years since legislation was passed. And so with that, we've been able to kind of craft some guiding principles. I want to run through that very quickly. The first principle is partnership. As a community land trust, we are in perpetual partnership with the community. And we will be looking for continued ways to have conversation, input, and participation with the community about the Coast Guard should CLAM have the winning bid. We also are in partnership with the County of Marin. Whatever developer is selected is going to be in a long-term partnership with the County of Marin on this project. And we will also be in partnership with a development partner that we bring on. And Stacy's going to talk about that a little bit more. But we need some additional, we bring a lot of strength to any proposal to acquire and own that site. But we're going to need some financial and construction and track record of bigger projects. And so we will need we're already looking and vetting development partners. Our second principle is vision. Is around the vision. So we are already listening, and we will continue to listen, especially to what's said in the community meetings around what the community wants to hear and to see on that property. That is our priority to make that possible. What we have already heard to this point is that housing and community uses are desired on that property, and that people envision that that property is fully integrated into Point Reyes Station, and that people can go and utilize the dining hall or the trails or the pool or what have you, at the same time as those amenities are made available for the people who live on site, and that they're in all of those 36 homes plus additional homes that occupy a dormitory building would be affordable to local wages and salaries. That's what we are hearing loud and clear, and that's what our goal is to create. We also, as a community land trust, envision that the community owns this property and stewards its long-term use in perpetuity. And the only way to do that is for CLAM to acquire and own the property. And the community has direct voice in being on and serving the CLAM Board of Directors, in the membership kind of vote that we just had, right? And in other spaces that we can create as we bring that property on board. But we see it's important to have local control of that property in perpetuity. The third principle is that this, we know, is the once-in-a-generation opportunity, as Mark Switzer has said. It's a game changer for West Marin, not only the outcome, but also the process. It enables us to create new kinds of organizing ourselves, new opportunities for people to be involved, and new ways of learning from a development partner that will completely amplify the impact that we are able to have in West Marin. So we go into this as a learner to learn all possible and to create the community's vision at the Coast Guard and to amplify that even broader throughout West Marin. That's our initial role. Next question. Will CLAM be the sole developer? Will CLAM do the whole thing on its own? And I think what I've just said to you is that indicates that CLAM absolutely will be the one that's continuously engaged with, participating, asking for input from the community. That's what our role is, among others, but that's our central role. And in a partnership relationship, you will always experience that from CLAM. And Stacy, would you like to speak to other aspects of a partnership?
I think it's important for all to understand that CLAM intends to steward the community's vision, but we don't have financial capacity to do a redevelopment of that large property. We don't have the financial backing or capacity that will take to have construction guarantees, construction insurance payments, bonds that go along with construction. And so it's important that we bring on a partner that has a very strong financial portfolio, has done projects of this type, that has done rehab development, not only new construction, but rehab construction, because the buildings are in existence. So we're going to have to work with that existing shell and green them and update them as needed. So we hope to collaborate with an organization that has the same kind of ethos that CLAM does and use CLAM's connection with the community and the vision that we are bringing forward of yours to marry with the technical skills and the financial capacity that another organization could help with and bridge these two skills together in a collaborative partnership.
So the fourth question is, Will there be housing for those who live or work locally? Anybody interested in that one? The reason this is such a hot point, obviously, is that we are in the midst of a lament across West Marin around how many people we are losing. And it affects us in our hearts, it affects us in our employment, it affects the ability of emergency service providers and teachers and others. It affects the viability of our community. So we clearly recognize why this is such a hot topic, because we want whole communities that thrive. And this is an amazing opportunity to help anchor not only Point Reyes Station, obviously, but all of West Marin. What I can tell you is CLAM's track record. So at CLAM, currently, we have 120 people on our waiting list. More than 83% or more than 80% of those people who are people who live or work locally. If they are living locally, they are very insecure. Maybe they're overcrowded. Maybe they've gotten notice and they're looking for another place. If they work locally, maybe they are in that first camp that live locally, or maybe they've already had to move out of the area. We have plenty of people who want to return back to the community that they've had to leave, and therefore they are on our waiting list. We've got other people who are working here quite a lot, have never had the opportunity to live out here, and are wanting to set up and grow roots in West Marin. These are the people that we primarily serve at CLAM as we go through our waiting list. And by the way, CLAM does this while it also fulfills all fair housing requirements. So it's easy to see an either-or situation, but actually in the reality of the day-to-day, it is not an either we serve locals or we serve people from across the county. We abide by fair housing. That means we do marketing, especially to people who, according to fair housing law, are least likely to apply. That means communities of color, wherever they might be in the county, including West Marin, the Canal District, and Marin City. So the other piece to say here is that in all of our marketing, we make sure that we thoroughly market within the community, especially to those least likely to apply in our community. We cover the place. We are talking with people. Our board members are talking with people. There's no way that in a Coast Guard project, for example, that local people are not going to have the opportunity up front very quickly, first off the bat, to apply for a home. The last thing to say is that, even as I've said all that, CLAM, as a bidder on this property, operates under the requirements set by the County of Marin. Whatever requirements they set, we will abide by. We want this property for the community's benefit.